Well, hello again. I welcome again to another episode of Down to Earth but Heavenly Minded. I'm your host, Irving Risch. You're listening to our show on internet radio. And we're going to continue on today in the book of Esther. And today we're going to be in chapters 4 and 5.
The Book of Esther, Esther 4 and 5, by Daniel C. Snaddon. At our last meeting we considered with you Haman's promotion and Haman's plot to exterminate the Jews. Before we made the application we saw the postman on horse delivering the edict that sealed the doom of the Jews. Chapters 4 and 5 could be entitled Esther's Intercession before the King. Verse 1-3, the decree to kill the Jews may have brought gratification to Haman, but among the Jews it produced some heart-rending scenes. This proclamation was final because it had been sealed with the royal signet. Verse 4, Esther's maid tells her of Mordecai's conduct. She also sent other clothes for him to wear which he did not accept. Verse 5, Esther sends a trusted servant to find out the reason for Mordecai's conduct. Notice Esther's ignorance of the real situation. Verses 6-9 contain Mordecai's reply to the queen's inquiry. Verse 8, finally Mordecai asked that Esther intercede for her people. Mordecai's request was most unorthodox. Verses 11-12 explain this and also gives the penalty for disobeying court etiquette. To further complicate matters, she had not been summoned by the king for 30 days. One can understand Esther's reluctance. Verse 13-14, in these verses Mordecai reminds Esther of her own position. She is a Jew and she will lose her life anyway. Verse 14, furthermore the salvation of the Jews depended on her action. Then Mordecai suggested to her that perhaps God had put her in the position of queen to save her people. Verse 15-16, Esther's reply to this strong appeal was to ask Mordecai to gather all the Jews together in Shushan and fast for 3 days and nights. Then she would go into the king, contrary to the law, and if I perish, I perish. Esther 5. The days of fasting are finished and the queen ventures into the king's presence. Esther has laid her life on the line. She has practically forfeited her life to save her people. Verse 2, Esther's youth and beauty touched the heart of the king. He held out to her the golden scepter. She drew near and touched the scepter and was received. God had worked on her behalf. Verse 3, the king knew that some special request had brought the queen into his presence. Verse 4, Esther's request. She asked that Haman be present at the feast. Verse 5, the king ordered Haman to attend. This was a great honor for Haman. Verse 6, the king reaffirms his promise to his beloved queen. Verse 7-8, Esther has not the liberty or perhaps the courage to put her case to the king. So she requests a postponement for 24 hours. Verse 9, Haman has honored and rejoiced at being invited to meet with the king and queen again. On his way here he saw Mordecai sitting in the king's gate. Everyone jumped to attention except Mordecai. Verse 10-12, Haman restrained himself. On arriving here he called all his friends together and boasted of his riches, the number of his children, his promotion, and finally, being invited to attend with the king, banquets arranged by Esther the queen. Verse 13, there was a fly in the ointment. All this availeth me nothing as long as I see Mordecai sitting in the king's gate. Verse 14, in the eyes of his friends and his vindictive wife this was not a difficult situation to deal with. They said to hang the upstart. The gallows were approximately 75 feet high. They said, when you get rid of the obnoxious Jew then go and enjoy yourself at the queen's banquet. Applications. Chapter 4. Picture the Jews under the sentence of death. They knew it and their hearts were filled with fear. This is accomplished by the work of the Spirit. See John 3 verse 36, the wrath of God abideth on him. Death has passed upon all men for all have sinned. It is appointed unto men once to die, after this the judgment. People can and do ignore this. The judgment of God with regard to sin is far greater than the judgment placed upon the Jews. Because there is wrath, beware lest he take thee away with his stroke, then a great ransom cannot deliver thee. Our Lord Jesus not only took his life in his hands, but he gave it willingly to deliver all who will believe from everlasting damnation. Chapter 5. Verse 3, the king gave Esther a signed, blank check. What will our Lord not give us? My God shall supply all your needs. God is not enriched by withholding or impoverished by giving. He says to us, what is your request? Verse 13, pride. The feet of sinners are set in slippery places. Pride goeth before destruction, and a haughty spirit before a fall. When cometh pride, then cometh shame, but the lowly is wisdom. Esther was an intercessor. We should be also. 1 Timothy 2 verse 1. Christ also is our intercessor, Romans 8 verse 27, Romans 8 verse 34, Hebrews 11 verse 25, Romans 8 verse 26.
The end